Alright guys, I'm going to keep it down because we have people sleeping in the house still. We have to talk. We have to talk about New South Wales Police because this is not an insulated case. This is something that has happened several times. The New South Wales Police abusing their power. And for full disclosure, I love the police department. I really, really do. Back to blue. But there are people in the police department who are bad apples. And we're going to show one of those right now. So, to set this up, this is a report that was done by Ethe. He does not need me to signal boost this. He has a bigger channel than I do. Please go support him. I will put a link in the description below to his YouTube channel. He works for Rebel Media, which is obviously a Canadian outfit that has offices here in Australia now. But I do want to talk about this because this is something that we are seeing a lot of. We are seeing a lot of the New South Wales and Victorian Police Department being heavy-handed for people that don't necessarily deserve it. So let's just jump in. We'll show you the footage of what happened and then we'll break it all down. So yeah, let's go from here. So, oh boy, what are the police department doing? What are you guys doing? Please tell me this cop has been fired. She's wrong about one thing. She does need to give her name and details. Okay, that is something that you do need to do. But, and that's something that every immediately talks here. But this is wrong on so many freaking levels. You can't steal a woman's bag and walk off the train with it. You can't go through a woman's bag without her permission. Unless she's done some sort of crime or something. And she hasn't. She said she has an exemption. She's told she doesn't legally need to tell you what the exemption is, but she's still done that. She is an asthma sufferer. That makes her exempt under the laws regarding wearing a mask. And this cop here, well, actually, I think it's the one next to him. Yeah, it's the one next to him. This moron here wants to go all RoboCop on her and then escorts her off the train by grabbing a bag. To me, I would have left him, especially if there's no ID in the bag, I would have left him keep the bag. And then I would have reported it stolen. That would have been interesting. I presume there's something in the bag that's obviously valuable because of obviously she's gone for it. But his whole idea of taking the bag was to get her off the train. So, you know, she sort of fell for that part. But regardless, at the end of the day, the thing that really blows my mind, you can't see anybody else here. You don't see anybody else on this train. Right? There's no one there in front of her. There's no one beside her. In fact, the only people that are breaking social distance laws right now are the two police officers that are harassing her. They're the ones that are breaking social distance laws to harass this woman who has a legal reason to be exempt from wearing a mask on a train. But the Gestapo here wants to make an example out of her. And it's really telling when the police turn around and say, do you have to film? Well, yes, I do have to film because you record us. So we're going to start recording you. And I can tell you now, the reason they didn't want her recording is because they're worried this would come out like it has. Now, it's funny. You type this into Google, nothing comes up. This has been tried to dump down the memory hole faster than Harry Potter. But at the end of the day, obviously us in independent media, we're going to talk about it. Because this is bullshit. This RoboCop here should be fired. He has grabbed a civilian's bag and dragged it off, and dragged her off, or not dragged her, but walked off the train with her bag. He's technically stolen that bag. He is stealing her property. And why? Because he doesn't want her on the train. Why? Because she's not wearing a mask. Okay, but she has an exemption. Not to mention the fact that there's no one else around her at the moment anyway. Now, we don't know, obviously. Look, there could have been people around her and they've gone because of this whole train's been held up. I don't know. But all I can see here is there's no one there. So I'm going to have to go by that. So, worst case scenario, say there were people around her. Obviously no one's sitting next to her because that's where the bag was. You know, for someone that's had, for a country that's had 3 COVID deaths in 6 months. We got RoboCop here who wants to go through and whack cheap Russells and steal a woman's bag. People in Australia, you're losing your rights. We have in the Australian anthem, we are young and free. But unfortunately, the free part is a bit of a myth. Because now we have to scan to go into somewhere. We have to scan to go to the supermarkets. We have to wear masks when we're on train. We have to social distance when we're on train. We're only allowed to leave our houses for certain. We're not free. And we have police who are abusing their power like this dickwad here. And this is not the first time that we've had this. I believe it was the New South Wales Police Department that literally tackled someone, or was that Victoria? I'm not quite sure. But we've had this happen so many times. Newcastle. It was in Newcastle. It's Sydney. And we've had the police department, and Ethe has had it himself. You know, like if we go back through like some of his previous reports here, and guys, obviously go give Ethe a follow, right? But I was gonna say, where was the one where they turned up to his house? Yeah, so let's just have a look at the police department and how the police in some countries or some states of Australia are currently carrying on. No, that's not the one. That's not the one we're talking about. That's the one where they asked him for a job. But yeah. Now, this is obviously Melbourne, but yeah, this is what major cities are like in Australia at the moment. That's just... Then we have this one here. I believe this was also Sydney or Melbourne. Melbourne, I think. Now, they were trying to pull him out of a car while his son was there. What was the crime he committed? He was more than 10 k's from his house eating in his car with his son. This is Australia, people. This is what we're having to deal with. This is the New South Wales or Victorian Police Department. They're just as bad as each other. They really, really are. Here we got. Here's over Yemeni getting a knock on his door at 8 o'clock at night, telling him that he's not allowed to go and film at a protest. We got several letters to deliver, to all the independent journalists. Police department, turning up at his house, telling him he's not allowed to go to a protest. This is what happens when you don't have free speech in your country. But this is the stuff that happens, and this is not the only thing, right? The mainstream media. That's Malaysia. In Australia, we had journalists that had their houses raided at 3 a.m. in the morning because they were covering a story that was damning to the Australian government. So, on June 19th, the Australian Federal Police, AFP, raided the home of journalist Ethe and the Sydney headquarters of the Australian Broadcasters Corporation, ABC. Right, so it was Anita Sunhurst. Why freedom of the press matters? You're kidding, right? Australian we actually covered this when it happened, but yeah, the Federal Police raided home of News Corp journalist Anita. Going to butcher that name. The Australian Federal Police raided the home of News Corp Australia journalist Anita, investigating the publication of the leaked plan to allow government spying on Australians. She was covering a story that the Australian government did not like, so they raided her. They raided her house and the ABC headquarters at 3 a.m. in the morning. So they're claiming it was publishing potentially classified information. Yeah. This is what happens when you don't have freedom of the press. This is why I fight for freedom of speech so much, because at the end of the day, I literally live in a country where we don't have it. And for all the leftists out there who sit there and go on about how freedom of speech doesn't matter, you have no idea. You really, really don't. But at the end of the day, getting back to the main story, this is absolutely disgusting. This is appalling. Like, them literally going through and dragging a woman, doing the version of dragging a woman off a train. Yeah. And they just pick up a bag and just walk off with it. And he says, here. But he did that to get her off the train. She shouldn't have done that. She should have just stayed. And then reported the bag as stolen by a police officer. That's what I would have done. Especially if there's no ID in there. And then later, he starts going... He just starts to go through a bag. He just starts to unzip it to go through it. Start going through a bag. Maybe I should ring the Newcastle Police Department and ask them if they got a statement on this. What do you guys reckon? Well, this is my country. It's fucking... It's embarrassing. It really, really is sometimes. And people wonder why I want to move to the US sometimes. Guys, let us know what your thoughts are in that comment section below. If this video is helpful, please smack that like button. If you're new to the channel, welcome and subscribe. Apart from that, guys, we'll see you in the next demonetized video. I'm going to put a link. I'll put a link to Avi Yemity's website and thefightthefines.com in the description. If you want to support this girl, please do go and support. It helps fight the police department fees and charges and stuff, the fines that they're putting out. It's a good cause. And also go and throw Avi Yemity a subscribe, please. Apart from that, guys, have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow.